All right, let's review from the previous videos. When we're dealing with OOP, generally speaking, there are four method types. One is a constructor that builds the method, instantiates, whatever you want to call it. We have a setter method that changes a attribute or changes the value. Then we're going to get, in this video, we're going to talk about getter method. Now, getter method basically retrieves information from the object. We may retrieve an attribute, or we may build something and retrieve that. When we think about getters, we want to think about returning something back to us. And then the fourth one is a printer or a doer. Now, let me go over to my screen. And we kind of left off here where we set the last name. Before we do this, can we copy an object like it was a regular variable? Oh, absolutely. If we look at our situation here, we changed Alice November, her attribute, her object last name is now Mighty Store. That could get a little confusing. So could I possibly do this? Can I create a whole new object from Alice? Say, now I could have Alice Mighty Sword. And we can say is equal to Alice November. And what that's going to do is going to create a whole new object based upon Alice November. So it's just going to do a straight copy. And now if I go down here and I do the exact same thing, make sure I spell it correctly. So we can see beginning to really see the power of the objects. They're almost like these big super deluxe variables. So I'm creating a whole new object just by copying another object. And now for the rest of the program, I can now think of Alice as now Alice Mighty Sword. I could do the exact same thing for Bob. And you know what? I'll do that. I'm going to say Bob Bowman is equal to Bob Oscar. And I will change even here. So from now on, I'm going to refer to these characters as their new given names. Let's run the program. Make sure I didn't type anything wrong, and it's working. All right. So now let's talk about getters, getting information. Now, there's a question like, if I'm just going to return an already existing attribute without doing anything to it, do we really want to take that approach? And the answer is yes. It has to do with encapsulation, has to do with kind of hiding things from the end user, and we'll talk about that in other videos. But you don't want to let your users know the internal workings of your classes, and there's more discussion on that. So yes, it's a common practice. Some people may say it's a little redundant or extra work to have a getter that gets an attribute that I can easily refer to by using a dot notation. For example, if I want to get Alice's just her last name, I could do Alice character last name and I would get that, versus using a getter. And I understand that, but it's probably in the best interest, best programming to use getters instead of trying to teach your end users all this stuff. So let me, through the magic of cut and paste, let me get, no pun intended there, let me get a couple getters. And right off the bat, you're going to see that they're pretty rudimentary. Get character's first name. That's going to return. I got some typos here. I don't know, because I was doing some copying and pasting. So ignore the man behind the curtain for a second. I'm not really passing it a argument, a parameter. It's going to say the self, the object that's calling it. That's basically what self is. The object that's calling it. Get the character's first name, get the character's last name, get the player's first name, get the player's last name. And it just returns that information. That's kind of boring, but it is good programming technique. But you know what? I want to create a couple getter methods that actually do something, that return something different. So through the magic of cut and paste, I have two getter methods. One getter method says get full character name. Now think about that. The object doesn't have a full name. It has a first name and a last name. It's nice, it's polite, it's good programming to return the full name. So I created a method called get character full name, and all it's going to return, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't create an attribute. Nope. It doesn't do anything except take some information and sends it back. So basically, it goes out there and grabs the character's first name, puts a space in between, and then gets the character's last name and returns that. You will notice that all the getters return a value, whether they're returning a specific attribute like we see here, or we're doing something, or we're creating something. I hate to use the word creating, we're manipulating something and returning that back. So now let's change our program a little bit here. We're going to keep, I like Alice Mighty Sword, but now I'm going to say print, and I'll say get character full name, or get full. I should be reading my own code. Get full character name. Not going to pass it anything. There's no parameters to really pass it. So it's basically going to take the self, basically the object that's calling it, that's the self, the object that's calling it, and returns it back to here. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with Bob. I'm going to say get full character name. Not going to send it anything because it's self. It's a get the full character name based upon self, or based upon Bob Bowman. Now, if I typed everything correctly, and by now you know that doesn't happen all the time, it's going to be a little bit different. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change it up here. Why not? Let's keep things consistent. Get full character name. And even here, get full character name. Not going to send it anything. So we create, let's go through this. We create Alice. We then print her full name. We then change her last name. Then we basically create a new object. A lot of things are going on here. We create a brand new object called Alice Mighty Sword. And then we say, get the full character name of Alice Mighty Sword. We do the same thing for Bob. We create a object called Bob Oscar. We get the full character name, send that back to us, return it back to us. Then we're going to change Bob Oscar's last name to Bob Bowman. And then we're going to copy, that's what this, going to copy an object. I know a lot of stuff is going on here. And then we're going to print the information. So let's run this. And we can see the initial creation, Alice November. We got the full name there. We changed her name, and we actually created a new object called Alice Mighty Sword, and we got her full name. We did the exact same thing there for Bob. So we're building upon this complexity here. But in reality, what have we really done? We've created a constructor that creates the initial object. We then created a bunch of setter methods that can change the character's first name, character's last name, player's first name, player's last name. We then created a series of gets for really, really simple things. Over the course of time, we would increase the number of gets. Maybe there's some attributes we don't want the user to have access to, so we wouldn't put a get there. But here we can say get their first name, last name, et cetera, et cetera. But then we created two get methods that go out, do some, not manipulation, but do something with the values and return a whole new value, right? So we created two methods, one called get full character name, take the character's first name, last name, put a space in there, send it back, or get full player name, take the player's first name, last name, put a space in there, and send it back. So we can see that our code is getting more and more sophisticated. Constructors, setters, getters, and guess what? The next video is going to be printers or doers. That being said, little preparation there, little, what do you call it, coming attractions. Let's go out and learn something.